Hello everybody, KT here with Wise Images Photography, and I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. Today what we're going to go over is a tool that a lot of beginning photographers don't use. And guess what, y'all? I have been doing this for probably about 20 years now, give or take a few years, and I really didn't start using the tone curves until probably, I don't know, maybe even a little over 6 months ago. My photography mentor said, hey, you need to start using some more tools. And he basically encouraged me to try something new. And so I want to encourage you all, no matter how little or how long you have been doing photography, I want to encourage you guys to go ahead and try new tools. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and jump into that. And let's go ahead and move over there. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I took this particular image and ended up with this particular image, giving it just a little bit of a pop. So what I did first is, you know, I love this photograph because sometimes this is kind of like my secret spot where I see the buffalo, and a lot of times the buffalo are on land, but today, for whatever reason, they decided that they were going to go out in the water, and a lot of times I don't catch them when they're in the water, so I was able to get a little bit closer. First things first, what I always do is I go ahead and I do my global adjustments, and so this next picture is just going to go from the raw file straight out of camera to the global adjustment. So when we look at that, I do a little bit of a pop. So I bring up my exposure, I go ahead and give it some contrast, I bring down the highlights a little bit, I up the shadows, I go ahead and I bring down the whites and I bring down the blacks a little bit. A lot of times I'll go ahead and add some clarity to it, I'll add some dehaze. Vibrance, I love bright colors, you guys, love them! And so I go ahead and I bump it up to a 40, and then I go ahead and provide a little bit of saturation. Now originally when I did my first kind of tweaks, I had it at 6200 for the temperature, but then I was like, you know, that's a little bit too yellow. I like warm images, but I went a little too warm, so I backed down to about 6000, so kind of made it a little bit better. So that's basically it on the top there. Then a lot of times, like I mentioned, I do add a little bit of too much yellow sometimes into my photographs, so I try to come over here with the saturation and I kind of desaturate by taking a little bit of the yellow down here in the HSL slide. And then I go ahead and go on down. I do a little bit of luminance, some detail, and then just remove chromatic aberration, you know, enable the profile correction on the camera, on the lens, and then I do go ahead and add a little bit of vignetting. And that's basically what I do for my startup of my photographs. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use one tool to provide a little bit of a tweak so that our image ends up like that. So we're going to take it from this, and if you notice, it's going to be very subtle. It's very, very subtle, but it just adds just a little bit of something. So, and that's what you're going to end with the beginning thing. So just so you guys can see the before and after, let me find the right button. So this is before, this is when my first global tweaks, to after, and it's very subtle, but what we're going to use is we are going to go ahead and use those tone curves. So let's go ahead and jump back onto this one, and this is basically right at the global adjustments, and we're going to go ahead and fine tune this in. Now first things first, y'all, I did not hit the mark with getting the rule of thirds. But I am going to go ahead and crop this image first because I kind of want to take out this horn a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go down here. Now I am going to go ahead and still leave this in here. I could take that out, but I'm not going to go ahead and take it out for the sake of today's editing here. But I am going to take out a little bit of that horn there so that way you don't see it. So it's a little bit of a less distraction. And like I said, you can see that I did not hit the rule of thirds here. But you know, a lot of times when I crop, I know that eventually my photographs are going to go to print, and depending on what size print you get, it does a crop when you go ahead and take it to print. So that's a lot of time, that's normally when I like to do a lot of my crops. Next up, we're going to go ahead and scroll on down here to this tone curve right here. Now, first things first, you have your parametric curve, right? So this one, you can sit there and you can make that traditional S turn. It's going to go ahead, and what it's doing is it's going to go ahead and add some contrast to it. But with this, if you go down, you know, you have your histogram here. And traditionally, you have your blacks on the far left, you have your whites on the far right, and then in the middle, you kind of have all your midtones. Now, if you go ahead and click on it and drag it down, you're going to notice that it makes it very, very dark. And you don't want to go too dark because then it starts looking really fake. Or you can go ahead and bring it up and you can lighten the image. If you come over here on the far right, if you notice, if you look at the grass, I kind of blew the grass out a little bit here. So you can pull it down so that it, you know, lightens it a little bit or makes it a little bit darker so it's not as bright. Or you can go up and you can make it really super bright. Now, with this particular tone curve, you can't really lock the spots on this tone curve. So what I found is, with the tone curve, it kind of just makes, it's kind of like fine tuning it. It's just making those little itty bitty tweaks to make it easier to get the look that you're looking for. Whereas the other adjustments, when you first jump in, are more of those global. It's like all over the place. And this is just kind of fine tuning it. It's kind of like, if you guys think about, have you ever sanded something before? And you know how you have that super real coarse sandpaper, and then you have the other sandpaper that's like the fine sandpaper? I want you guys to look at the tone curve as the fine sandpaper. So the global is kind of that rough, coarse, kind of dig it up kind of stuff, and then the soft sandpaper, like the, I want to say it's like the 120. It does the fine detail, like really kind of smoothing out that wood. And that's kind of what the tone curve is. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the little adjustments that I made, because this, it doesn't really set any kind of waypoints. But if you go ahead and go to the next point, you have the point curve, and here you can actually set your points. And I'm going to show you that in a second. Now today I'm not going to go over the red, green, and blue channels because you can also get into where you also tweak your tonal curve, like the coloring that you want in the photograph as well. But today we're just going to work on going to the point curve and just adjusting our contrast. So that's what we're focusing on today. Don't want to throw too much at you guys. I know if you want to go in and play with these other colors here so that you can see how it affects your photo, definitely jump in. But the more I learn about the tone curve, the more I find it fascinating. So without further ado, let's go ahead and click the point curve. And what I am going to do is I can do a couple different things here. One, I can go, okay, what's going on here? This is a little bit too bright for me. And if you notice, as I hover over, there's like this, well, there's this icon here, and I can click on this icon, and then I can hover over. And as you guys notice, if you look over here on the far right, when I'm hovering over the picture over here on the left, you notice that the point kind of moves around. So I kind of want to go ahead and set a point there. The grass is a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to go ahead, if I bring it up, notice it brightens everything. If I pull it down, it kind of makes everything a little bit darker. So I like how I kind of toned down the grass just a little bit. Now, I really like this little front part of the buffalo because it's already a dark spot. So I went ahead and I just click on it. I'm not clicking and dragging or anything. I'm just clicking right onto the photograph where I want to adjust. Now I know that this is the front part, like the snout of this buffalo. So if I go up high, it's going to brighten everything. If I go down low, notice it darkens it. So these are kind of more your midtones because it's in the middle section of this histogram. So I'm going to go ahead and just tweak that down just a little bit because I kind of want to give a little bit of a contrast here. So that's just a little bit. I'm going to do just a little bit more. There you go. All right, so now he's like kind of a lot darker there, so it's kind of giving you that contrast. Now, honestly, I like them. I think it's pretty close to our next photo. Oh, I actually did more here than I did on this one, but that's okay. It gives you guys the idea. Now, if you guys wanted to add, like, sometimes you may have seen people where they add like a matte finish, because this is the far left and this is where your blacks are. If you bring this up, you'll notice that it kind of gives you that matte look to it. So if you like that matte look, it took me a long time to figure that one out. But once I figured it out, I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. But I don't really use it a lot. But if you want that kind of that cinematic matte kind of look, it's a matter of just bringing up on the far left-hand side where the blacks are. And then you can kind of play with that a little bit. But that is basically all I do with the tone curve. I don't do a lot. Sometimes I do go ahead and use this parametric curve where it's, you know, not the set points, and I just kind of do, you know, you'll be amazed if you just even do just a little bit like this and make a nice little an S curve. It does do a lot of nice, like, kind of looks on your images. But if you really want to be able to tone it in, I would use that point curve. I would definitely go ahead and click on this icon here. I don't know what it's called, but I click on this, it's the adjust point curve. If you click on it, it will let you kind of hover over wherever you want to adjust. Click on that area, it's going to put a point on your point curve, and then you can adjust it however you see fit, whether you want to go up or whether or not you want to go down. It just really gives you that, just that extra little bit of fine tuning that you want. Now, something else that I sometimes will do to my photographs, and this is not one of the best images to like kind of say, yeah, this is a great image to do this, but I normally like an animal's eyes to pop a little bit. So what I'll do is I kind of go ahead and I have an iris enhance brush that I use, and I'll go ahead and brush over the animal's eyes. But what I noticed with this little guy is that it didn't bring, because I was so far away, it didn't make his eyes pop. And on different animals and humans even, normally I'm a lot closer than I was with this particular buffalo. So what I did was I went ahead and I brought the blacks down just a little bit, and it didn't really make the eyes pop like they normally do, but normally that is one other thing that I go ahead and work on when I'm working on my photographs. The other thing that I noticed is that he's got like a little spot here. I didn't notice this until I started recording, and it's kind of distracting to me. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and take it out. It looks like he has a boo-boo on him. So I went ahead and I hit K, and that's not what I wanted. Q, sorry guys, Q. Wrong button. It's amazing. You can do something for a long time and still forget it sometimes. All right, so I went ahead and hit Q and kind of took that out. That's the healing brush. And then because there was a reflection, right? Because you were getting the reflection up here, there was a little bit of a reflection there. And so that's why I went ahead and took that out. So now from a distance, I'm not seeing that little distracting, it looked like a boo-boo on his little arm there. And I didn't want that there. So anyways, that is all I have for you all today. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, go ahead and click subscribe, and that way you don't miss any other future episodes. Thank you to all of you who have been following me. I'm getting much better and much healthier. I've been working on more mobility is what I've been working on lately. For those of you who wanted a quick update on my surgery, remember that you guys are awesome. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you later, alligator.